So for this project, I'm using a size J crochet hook, 6 millimeters, and I've got Furls Wander acrylic yarn in colors Snow and Agave. You can of course use any worsted weight yarn that you wanted. So for this project, we're gonna end up making 2 of these panels that are the same size, and the written instructions and charts for this pattern are on my blog. It's free online. You can get the link in the description of the video, or you can also purchase the pattern as a PDF, and those links are also in the description. So whatever color you start with is going to be the color that is on the outside edge of the rectangles. So for mine, I'm starting with the green. Also, you can see since this is interlocking, the front and the back will be different. So this is what in this pattern, they're very similar, but the front has more of the B color visible and the back has more of the A color visible. But both of them feature these little like L's and upside down L's. So it's similar, but not exactly the same. And when you sew the two sides together, you'll be able to decide if you want them to have one side of each showing or both one side or both the other side. So you can kind of customize that part to as you want. So this is one of them. This is what we're going to make, and I'm going to start the other rectangle now so you can see how to make it. This pattern uses a 6-row repeat, but the setup for interlocking is a little bit different. So I'll walk you through that. So get your main color, your A color, on your hook. And we're going to start with a chain of 78. If you're making a different size, your starting chain might be a different length. Again, this pattern is free online, so if you check out the blog, it'll tell you exactly what your stitch count should be for the size that you're making. But I'm going to chain 78. So here I am going to do 78, but this one was 75. So this is the stitch that the last double crochet will come out of, and that's really our turn chain. What I like to do is I like to go and put a stitch marker right here. So this is the 73rd chain, and that's the one I'm going to work a double crochet into. So it's 75, 76, 77, 78, and now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th chain from the hook. I'm going to do a double crochet. Now that turn chain counts as the double crochet and the chain 1, and you might think to yourself, you should have done one more chain because a double crochet is usually 3, and then the chain 1 would be 4 more stitches. But I like to do a chain 3 because I feel like it just works a little better. The corner tends to stretch out a little bit, so I like to do a chain 3 for the double crochet in chain 1 instead of a chain 4. If you feel like it's too tight there, you can add one more chain on the turn. Now to go all the way across, all we're going to do to set up for this color, and we can remove this now. I just like to do it so I know I put that in the right spot. So we did a double crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip 1 chain, and then do a double crochet in the next stitch. And I am working into the back bump on my chain just so the edge looks nice. Again, that's totally optional. If you are not picky about it, then don't worry about it. So chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. And I'm going to do this all the way across until I have my nice starting mesh. Once you do the first couple rows in interlocking, then it's much easier. The setup is a little bit tedious, I'm not going to lie. So as you come to the end, your last double crochet should be worked in the last chain of your starting, or the first chain from your starting chain. And this, at the end of every interlocking row, I do a chain 4, and then either pull up a long loop or you can place a stitch marker. I'm just going to pull up a loop for this one. So now this is a great opportunity, a good place to check your count. So for my size, I should have 38 double crochet right here. So I'm going to check that. Okay, yep, I have 38, so that's good. Now this is going to just hang out here for a little bit. I'm going to push it up just so it's out of the way. And now we need our contrast color or our B color. And for me, this again is the color Snow. It's kind of a beautiful off-white. I actually really love this color combo. And the start for this one is going to be a chain, but it's going to be 2 stitches shorter than the chain for your main color. So for me, I'm going to chain 76. So 70, 71, 72, 73. And again, that's where my turn chain will come out of. That'll be the very corner. This right here, the 3rd stitch before, is going to be the first place I will work a double crochet. And I'm going to do 3 more, so total of 76. And now before I would do my double crochet here, I need to get this woven into this. So if you look here on the other one that I've already made, so this is where we started. Here's our, starting knots. So our chain came this way, and then we worked back this way. So we need to get our white chain, our B or contrast color chain woven in here. And you can see in the corner of the B color is going to be on the back side of the project. So we're going to start in the back, and then we're going to come in front of this 3rd stitch of green. And then from there, we're going to weave back and forth. So here, if we take our starting end of our white and the side of the green that doesn't have your yarn, so keeping it straight, but we're going to bring it all the way over here. So we're starting on this side. We'll take this end, and it's going to go, so we want it to be in the back here, so we're going to start from the back, and we'll go up. So here's our turn chain, and 1 more. We'll go up in front of this one, and then down. So we're just going to alternate now every stitch up and down, weaving this through our starting mesh for our main color. Alternatively, if you don't want to have to do this weave, you could make your starting chain of green, make your starting chain of white, and then work the green in front or behind the white chain. But I just think it's easier to weave it in after the fact. So that's kind of personal preference. You can choose whichever way you want to do that. And this gets bunched up here, that's fine. It's gonna kind of get stretched out as you go. Not a big deal. And so you can see here, we're gonna end with a stitch from the back. So that's kind of sticking out the back there. So now if we kind of take this, again, we're not working our A color, we just need this here because the B color has to be worked around the A color. So I'm going to pull this through just a little bit. So our first stitch, I marked this, and I really do think it's useful to mark it, especially on this part. It's less important with the A color, but it can be difficult to find where that first stitch is when you're dealing with, a strand that's going in and out and all through. So I think it's really useful. Again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but you are going to double crochet in the 6th chain from your hook on the white, and you're going to do that. You have to position it here just to the left of the 2nd main color stitch. So that turn chain counts as a double crochet. So it's 1, 2 double crochets. So I'm going to do a double crochet here from the front. So I'm going to reach here, grab my chain, working in front of the green, double crochet, and chain 1. Now I can take this out. Scoot my chain down a little bit. So now we're still going to alternate. We're still going to do chain 1. So I did a double crochet, chain 1. We're still going to skip a chain on the bottom here, and so I'll work into this space next, but I have to do it from the back. So in order to do that, if you are familiar with interlocking crochet, you can kind of take off. It's just going to alternate front, back, front, back. But for those of you who are new, what you're going to do, normally I wouldn't be holding this, I'm just kind of holding it in place so you can see it a little bit easier. You're going to yarn over, because we're doing a double crochet, and we're going to reach through. So this is now to the left of the next main color stitch. I'm gonna reach through, grab the place you need to work into, that part of that chain, but all of my yarn, all of my stuff is all in back of the hook. So I'm kind of pulling that chain to the back a little bit, and then I'll finish my double crochet and chain one. So now I've got one stitch from the front, one stitch from the back, and I chained loosely, so it is pulling a little bit. As you go, it'll kind of even out because it's pulling the chain a little bit. So now the next one is going to be from the front to the left of the next main color stitch. So right after each main color stitch, you should have a contrast color stitch. So the turn chain counts as the first one here. Then we've got this one to the left of that, this one to the left of that, and now we need to work to the left of this. So when I'm starting, a lot of times I will kind of pull this over so that I can see where I worked into last. So I worked into that stitch, so I've got to skip one. I'm going to work into this one right here. So I'll yarn over, and from the front, work into that stitch and chain one. So it's always double crochet, chain one. Scoop my chain down a little. So now that stitch is there. We need one from behind to the left of this stitch. So skip a chain, that one right there. I'm gonna yarn over, reach through, insert my hook in that chain where I need to work, and do my double crochet. This, my friends, is the most tedious part of interlocking crochet. My absolute least favorite part is this B color or contrast color setup row. Okay, and then chain one after the double crochet, and we're just going to keep going like this. We're alternating back, front, back, all the way across. Just make sure that you have one of the main color stitches in between each of your contrast color stitches. Otherwise, your pattern will not work out right, and we don't want that. Nobody wants to have to redo their setup. That's not fun. All right, so I'm going to keep going here. Okay, and just like for the main color, your last stitch should end up in the last chain of the row. So I'm going to skip one and work into this one from the back. Now, I cannot tell you how many times I've started an interlocking crochet project, sorry, chain 4 and pull up a loop, and found that I'm off by one chain here. If that is the case, just fudge it. Like, you don't have to undo the whole project if you're off by a chain. Just don't leave a chain space or leave an extra chain, whatever. It's not worth it. Nothing is worth that. Okay, so this is what it should look like when you start. And yes, this corner's a little wonky, but when we do the finishing work on the poncho, it'll be fine. Okay, so this is what it looks like. You've got alternating front and back for both colors. And now we're going to turn it around and get myself organized here. Now our contrast color, we want to be in the back of the project, so we'll put it behind and get our main color on our hook. It is totally worth it to take a second to get your yarn organized to make sure you're not gonna get all tangled. Okay. So now I'll get this back on our hook. So that was a chain 4. When we stopped, we made a chain 4, and that counts as a double crochet and a chain 1. So that is our edge stitch here. So now with the main color, we are going to put all of these main color stitches in front of the work. So we're going to do front double crochets for all of these, which makes it pretty easy. So working from the front, so we're not reaching behind here at all. From the front, we're going to work into this double crochet. Make sure you don't catch any of the contrast color yarn or anything, so just from the front. From here on out, your color only works into its own color. So that's a double crochet and chain 1. And since we're just working all of these stitches from the front, we're going to keep going here in the front. We need to find this one. It was behind here, but this is the top of the double crochet. So I'm going to grab that. Again, make sure you don't grab the contrast color also, but kind of pull that up to the front. Do the double crochet and chain 1. We'll keep going all of these worked from the front, double crochet, chain one. So here you might see this and you're like, oh no, I don't know whether this stitch is supposed to be here or here. If you find yourself in that situation, just remember that they always alternate. So you've got green, white, green, white, green, white, green, white. So this green one is supposed to be here. You can always go back and double check that if you start from one edge or the other. As the pattern develops, it's gonna be kind of obvious where the stitches are supposed to go, so you won't have to double check so much. But in this row, you can kind of see they're in clumps of two. So you've got two greens and then this white post, and then two greens and this white post. So here, this one's also going to be before this white post. If you've worked with this yarn before, I have noticed, so I tried it out shortly after it came out. I made the Tessa skirt out of this yarn, and I love the shine of it. I don't work with a lot of synthetic fibers anymore, but as far as an acrylic goes, it has a nice feel. It's very like lofty. It's got a lot of squish to it and the shine. The problem that I found when I worked with it originally was that it had a ton of knots. There were just a ton of knots in the skein, and I have not found nearly as many knots this time around. So I don't know if they improved their kind of processing or what they did, but that problem at least has been solved. I think so far I've been through, I think 4 skeins, and only one of them had a knot, so which is pretty consistent for other brands. So that didn't bother me too much. I mean, nobody wants to find a knot. It's just annoying. But at least it is not the big problem that it used to be. And I haven't found any of those weird, like, balls of random fibers that they used to sometimes have. So when it was first produced, it was a little problematic, and now it feels much better. And now the last stitch. This is the top of this double crochet, so there's the chain one. I'll work in this stitch, which would be the top of the double crochet. Oops, I lost my yarn over. Come out, yarn. Come out, hook. And then chain 4, and pull up a loop. All right, then we'll come back. We didn't turn it yet because we still need to work our B color. So in interlocking, you work A, then B, and then turn. So A, B, turn for each. Some people label each one a separate row. I like to say row 1A and 1B, just because to me, it makes it more clear that we're not turning yet. So just kind of heads up on nomenclature across different projects or designers. They might label that differently. All right, now with our contrast color, we are just going to alternate back and front stitches. So we started here, this one is in the back. You can see it's behind the bar here. And then this one's going to be from the front. So basically you're doing opposite of whatever you did before. So I'm going to reach through here. You can turn it to the back to see. So this double crochet, I need to grab the top of that double crochet, and I'm going to pull it to the front of the project. And I will do my double crochet here, being careful not to get any of that green yarn, and chain 1. The same thing here, I need to work from the back, so I'll reach behind under the green bar and grab the top of that double crochet and work it from behind my project. And chain 1. This one's from the front, so I'm going to reach through here, find the top of my double crochet, and as you get good at interlocking, you'll find this really easily. You won't have to turn the project around so much. Pull that to the front and double crochet. From behind, so I'm going to reach under the green bar, grab the top of the double crochet, and work it from the back of the project. Chain 1. Always still double crochet and chain 1 for every stitch. This one's going to be from the front, so reaching between these two greens, you can find the top of the double crochet here, pull it to the front, and so my hook, my yarn, and my stitch are now all in front, and finish my double crochet and chain 1. This one's from the back, so I go under the green bar, find the top of the double crochet and work it from the back. I'm just going to do this all the way across, alternating front and back. So I said this was a 6-row repeat. That's 6 rows of each color. So I'm going to say that this row, I already did the A color, I'm doing the B color, is going to be the first row of our repeat. So I'm not ignoring the setup row. And this is the start of our repeat. Again, at the end, I have one more white stitch I need to make, and it has to be from the back. So in the turn chain, you can kind of pull this through so you can see easier. Top of the double crochet, chain 1. This would be the top of my double crochet of my turn chain. So always in the third of 4 stitches in the turn chain. Double crochet here, chain 4, and pull up a loop. So this is what it looks like. Again, this is the back side of the project because we had turned before we started this row. So this is what it looks so far. Now if we turn it back to the right side, on the next row we need our contrast color to start in the front when we get there. So we need to put it in the front now because that'll kind of lock it in place as we do the main color. So you have to pay attention to where the contrast color working chain is. Now with our main color on this row, we're gonna again alternate. We're gonna start with the back and then the front. So here we're gonna do a back stitch, working from behind, and then we'll come in front and do a front stitch. So again, trying to figure out where this is. This turn chain counts as a stitch. This is in between. So this one here, this white one is to the left of that, and this one here is our next stitch, working in the front, and then working in the back, reaching under the chain, grab the top of the double crochet. You can look in the back if you need to make sure you got the right spot. Working the double crochet from the back, and then a front. Fronts are easier, you just have to be a little careful not to grab this chain on accident. And then the back. And we will do this all the way across, alternating front to back with our main color. Okay, so now we'll do our contrast color. On this row, all of the contrast color stitches are going to be worked from the front. So again, being a little careful to make sure those are in the right place. You got the turn chain and this chain, then they alternate. There's a green stitch in between each set of 2. Kind of like when we started, you're going to end up with 2 white stitches kind of in between each of these green posts. It makes it a little easier to tell that you're on the right track. And here at the end, kind of the same thing. You can pull this in front so you can see, skip a chain, and double crochet here. And chain 4, and pull up a loop. And we'll turn the project. So now we're looking at the back side again. Again, we're going to want our contrast color to be in the front so that it's ready when we need it there next time. And we'll get our main color back on our hook. So this time our main color is going to alternate front, back, front. Something that can help you on this pattern is to realize that you're never going to have a place where the same color is on the same side of the project for 3 rows in a row. So here you've got 2 rows of the main color already here, so you're not going to have it on this side of the fabric here. So we're going to alternate front, back, front, back. So you don't have 3 green rows in a row on the same side of the fabric. The same holds true for white. You'll have 2 in a row here, but you won't have a third one on that side of the fabric. All right, so starting with the front, again, our contrast color needs to be in front of the work. So front stitch, and then a back stitch. Front stitch. So this row, basically, it's opposite of whatever it was on the previous row for the main color. And we will just do this all the way to the end, alternating front to back. Now we'll get our contrast color back on our hook. And on this one, we are just going to alternate front, back, front, back. So this turn chain counts as the first front. So now we're going to work back, again, reach under, grab the stitch, and then from the front. So on this row, there's always going to be a front just before the next post. So it would be back, front, back, front. And you can see here, remember I said there would never be 3 rows on the same sides. There were 2 rows in a row here, and now this one's on the opposite side. We'll turn it around here. So now this is the right side again. All right, our contrast color is going to be in the front again. Now we'll get our main color on our hook. So all of these main color stitches are going to be in the back. And you can see this pattern developing. So we have this solid white line here, and that's going to happen every 3 rows. So now 1, 2, 3. It's time for another solid white line on this side. So that's why all of these stitches have to be worked from the back. So reaching from the back, grab the stitch, and double crochet from behind. And we'll do this all the way to the other side. Just every stitch worked from the back. And we'll get our contrast color on our hook. And at this point, you can kind of just start looking at the rows below to see what you're going to do. This one we're going to alternate front, back, and you can see that's how it goes here, front, back, front, back. Again, the reason this is a 6-row repeat instead of a 3-row repeat is because this was worked on the wrong side the first time around, and this time it's worked on the right side. So front, back, alternating all the way across. So this counts as my first front. Now back. Okay, turning it over. So now this is wrong side. And now we're going to want the contrast color to start in the back on the next round. So or next row on the B row. So we'll put that in the back to start and get our main color back on our hook. Now we're going to alternate back, then front, then back, then front. Again, we already have 2 rows in a row of green on this side, and we know we're not going to have 3 ever. So we know we have to have a back stitch there. So we're going to do back, then front, then back, then front, and back, and front. And we will just keep going like this all the way through. And we'll get our contrast color on our hook. Now, just like on this side, there was a solid white line every 3 rows. On this side, there is a solid green line every 3 rows. So now it's time for another solid green line, which means every stitch with our contrast color is going to be worked from the back. All right, we've got one more row in the 6-row repeat. Again, kind of ignoring our starting row just because it's written differently. So our 6-row repeat really goes from here until the end of this row that we're working on, so this white line. Now, if you want this side to be kind of your main side, then you could actually end it here as the end of the 6-row repeat. But it doesn't really matter where you stop this pattern when you get to the length written in the pattern description for your size. Just end it with a main color row and then tie off both colors. It really doesn't matter where you make it. Just make sure that, so you're going to make 2 rectangles, make sure they're both the same size. Anyway, so the last row of the 6-row repeat, contrast color again is going to start in the back. So we'll put it behind. And we'll get our main color on our hook. Now we are going to alternate front, back, starting with the front. So we got to reach in between here and pull this stitch to the front a little so we can get to it. So front, then back, reaching behind, grab the stitch, then front. So technically this is the same as this very starting row here. And this one is the contrast color is gonna be the same as this one here. Now we'll get the contrast color on our hooks, and we are gonna just alternate back, front, again, not having 3 in a row on the same side. Whoops, I just messed myself up. So the first one does count as the first back stitch. So this one needed to be a front stitch. But since I saw that it would make 3 in a row, I caught myself. So it's kind of a good thing on this pattern to be able to keep in mind. So for each color, you're going to have 2 rows where you're alternating either front, back, or back, front. And then you're going to have 1 row where all of the stitches are in the front or all of the stitches in the back. All right, so that is the first 7-ish rows. So you can see here, this is the pattern repeat. It's 6 rows long. This is what the back side looks like. And this is why I say it really doesn't matter which row you end with, just end with a a main color row because the repeating pattern is offset. So it's here for the back side and here for the top side. So no matter where you end it, you're not going to have a complete like solid line, solid line to solid line on the top and the bottom of your pattern repeat. So you can stop it wherever you want, just stop it on a main color row. And that will be just fine. So refer to the actual written pattern for how long you should make it for your given size, but you're going to make 2 identical rectangles, and then I'll show you how to sew them together to make it into the poncho. Okay, so when you have finished 2 rectangles, so my size, I made it so that there are 19 of these sections, 1, 2, 3, whatever. You can see the chart on the website for how big yours needs to be for your size. Now, I've already sewn one side onto this, and you can either sew it or crochet on. I crocheted it, so it's a little bumpy on this side, but that doesn't bother me. So what you're going to want to do is here, and this is personal preference. I decided to make it so that I have 2 different sides showing. So I have the dark side on one and the light side on the other rectangle. So you're going to crochet the short side of one rectangle onto the long side of another rectangle. So this is the short side of this rectangle, and so this is the long side here of the green rectangle, so it keeps going past where it's joined. So I sewed the short side of the second rectangle onto one part of the long side of the other rectangle. So now you're going to do the same thing on the other side, but it can be a little bit confusing to figure out exactly where. So if you follow this rectangle all the way down, so this is the part that isn't sewn, so this short side is going to have to attach to the long side of this rectangle. So if you follow this rectangle down, so this is the flat edge here, so you want this other side here. If you follow this down all the way to the end, you're going to sew this short side of the other rectangle onto this part of the long side of this rectangle. So it's going to leave a hole in the middle. This is your head hole. So you're sewing this end onto here. And again, you can crochet it together or you can sew it together. It is personal preference. I'm going to crochet it together, and I want my seams to both be on the same side of the poncho, so I'm turning it over here. Now, when I crochet this together, I just decided to use my main color yarn because it'll be a little less obvious. So when I sewed that first one, I actually didn't even cut the yarn. When I finished my second rectangle, I just kind of used that yarn that was already on my hook to crochet it on. But for this one, I'm gonna join my yarn to the corner here. And it doesn't matter which side you're looking at. You're just gonna find the corner and the corner of the other one. And join this yarn up on here. Now I joined mine with slip stitches. You can also do single crochets. If you do slip stitches like I did, just make sure they're loose, otherwise you'll end up having it kind of puckering. So I did 2 stitches per row. So I did a stitch around the posts here. So it's 1. And then I did a stitch working into the double crochets for both of them. And then I'm pulling up kind of a loose loop, so around the posts and then into the stitches. You could do both of the stitches around the posts. If you're a tight crocheter and you don't want to have to be loose, you can do an extra stitch around each post. So you can kind of trial and error this, but this is the way that I joined it. So if you want it to match me, this is what I did. You can use any joining method that you prefer. I think that it would look best with sewing, but who likes sewing fabric together? Not me. Sometimes I think it's worth it to sew it just because it does look so neat and tidy when it's done. But today is not that day, and this project, for me, is not that project. So I'm just going to do this all the way down until I get to the end. And then I will finish off this yarn and weave it in.